let's talk about Twitter. People have always looked at Twitter as this sort of cesspool of folks looking to get outraged at anything and anyone. By its very nature, it's impossible to get moderation right, as the line for what is and is not acceptable varies from person to person and community to community. So in a world where technology is making things a little better every day, we have to counterbalance that in the form of unstable billionaires, one of whom decided to buy Twitter on a whim, then decided not to and got sued into buying it anyway. Running a social network profitably is one of the most challenging things to accomplish, and to greatly oversimplify things, it boils down to three main components: users, advertising, and an execution model that's efficient enough to keep things running without costing more than what the company brings in from the aforementioned users and advertisers. As the new owner, Elon Musk seems to only have cursory knowledge of how to manage that last part, and is faced with his new acquisition having never really solved the profitability problem either. So far in this story, he has done nothing wrong yet. And then he decided to put his ignorance on full display by dragging 50 Tesla engineers to review code at Twitter, which is a completely different beast than what they do at their jobs. Imagining some random automotive engineer looking at the presumably millions of lines of code for a few hours, then having to bluff to their incredibly dumb boss that it all looks fine. To make things worse, the Twitter CEO, who prides himself for his efforts to save humanity and the planet we live on by making electric cars, asked Twitter engineers to print out 50 pages of code each. In other words, the man, heralded as some sort of futurism icon by his fan base, ordered the killing of trees so some automotive engineers can review excerpts of code they're not going to understand very well because they're looking at it for the very first time. The engineers were then told something that paraphrases to LOL, never mind, just shred the hard copies. One of the first things Elon Musk did after purchasing Twitter was to fire CEO Parag Agrawal, CFO Ned Segal, General Counsel Sean Edgett, and Head of Legal Policy, Trust and Safety Vijaya Gade. I hope I'm pronouncing those sufficiently unbutchered. Getting rid of the executive layer upon acquiring a company is not the most unusual thing to do, and is normally seen as a quick way to wipe the board clean, pun intended, and get everybody on the same page. The problem is he then followed up with firing half the company, all while making a giant mess of it in the process. You see, when firing thousands of employees on a whim, you kind of have to give advance notice, which is what Twitter employees did not receive. Twitter is now engaged in conducting mass layoffs without providing the required notice under the Federal WARN Act. The lawsuit says, referring to the Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act, that requires 60-day notice for certain plant closings or mass layoffs. Even though the employees were offered 3 months' pay as part of their severance, it does not change Twitter's obligations under the law. Either way, the situation is so bad that Jack Dorsey, one of the founders of Twitter, made a public apology for the mess. I realize that many are angry with me, he wrote, adding, I own the responsibility for why everyone is in this situation. I grew the company size too quickly. I apologize for that. Be that as it may, layoffs are rarely well executed, and Twitter's cuts are a great example of how not to do it. Given its already understaffed moderation and verification teams were slashed disproportionately aggressively. Elon also announced plans to charge an $8 monthly subscription fee to get that blue check mark next to your name. Traditionally, this free feature is supposed to be available for public figures to indicate they are who they present themselves to be. Turning this into a subscription model has seen people accuse Musk of killing the very free speech he claims to be advocating for very strongly. This problem is further exacerbated given news that not being verified will also downgrade your service and ability to respond to mentions. When a company is seen as potentially toxic to associate with, you stop advertising on their platform, which is exactly what these companies have done in at least some capacity. Audi of America, CVS, General Mills, General Motors, Mondelez International, Nintendo, and Pfizer. These are some pretty big names. They don't want to taint their own corporate image by advertising on what's now seen as a social network about to slide into the far right. Together with over 1 million people quitting Twitter since Elon took charge, he's not too happy about the drop in revenue. Twitter has had a massive drop in revenue due to activist groups pressuring advertisers, even though nothing has changed with content moderation, and we did everything we could to appease appease the activists. Extremely messed up. They're trying to destroy free speech in America. That statement comes as he publicly asked people to vote Republican on his own platform, signaling a very clear lack of neutrality. No matter which side of the political spectrum you're on, this is not something you want to see in a public place of discourse. Not to mention that nothing has been done to appease the so-called activists that he is referring to. As if all that wasn't enough, people have been taking to impersonating Elon Musk, as the blue check does not validate the name you have in big bold letters. I can't stand the term billionaire fragility, but after Elon started banning people for making fun of him by renaming themselves Elon Musk in retaliation for the pay-to-play implementation of what's supposed to be a verification checkmark, it's kind of hard not to give at least a chuckle of acknowledgement. He also banned Kathy Griffin for doing just that, and as someone who encourages women to swear like speak their minds, not cool. Did I forget anything? Oh right, the billionaire futurist who cares about the planet wants everybody to commute to the office now and has equated working from home to resigning from the job. Remote work is no longer allowed unless you have a specific exception. Managers will send the exception lists to me for review and approval. He added that the new policy, first reported by Bloomberg, would be effective from Thursday for a minimum of 40 hours a week. What this reads as is that not only has Elon Musk destroyed Twitter on the outside, he's also turned it into a place nobody wants to work at. While what's left of the less technical teams may have a bit less weight to throw around when it comes to standing up to these declining working conditions, we can definitely expect any competent engineer who is having a great time working from home to be interviewing at other companies now. In other words, Elon has set up a brain drain at Twitter. So between the people who got fired, the people who are leaving, and the advertisers who are pulling out en masse, it's safe to say that there's more of Twitter that no longer exists than within the company that is still in operation. I don't want to talk about politics on this channel very much, but historically, right-wing social networks tend to fail pretty hard. So when you take a relatively open forum with an existing moderation team that has problems, but announce plans to tweak it to enable and promote repressive ideas and hate speech more than it slipped through before, it's bound to follow the footsteps of its less well-funded brethren. Together with a CEO that had a stellar reputation when it was just about Tesla and SpaceX, who dunked his public image into the sewer about as hard as he has somehow been making Twitter fall into a worse state than it already was, it's safe to say that there has to be some sort of public demand for an open, objective, neutral replacement for the blue bird. What I'm expecting in the near future is such a competitor to be in the works, be it a new startup or a project within some large cap tech company, you know, the usual suspects, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and so on, with celebrities and politicians planning on joining it once it's publicly available. The only way for Twitter to survive is for Elon to sell the company and whoever picks up the mess to spend a lot of time and money into repairing the damage that has been done. In other news, we have an update on the consequences of Mark Zuckerberg's money pit. Meta is also having layoffs, downsizing the company by around 11,000 people, with hiring freezes continuing into Q1 of next year. Today, I'm sharing some of the most difficult changes we've made in Meta's history, Zuckerberg said in the letter. I've decided to reduce the size of our team by about 13% and let more than 11,000 of our talented employees go. We are also taking a number of additional steps to become a leaner and more efficient company by cutting discretionary spending and extending our hiring freeze through Q1. So did they decide to finally kill the metaverse and write it off as a tax thing? He said Meta is making reductions in every organization, but that recruiting will be disproportionately affected since the company plans to hire fewer people in 2023. The company extended its hiring freeze through the first quarter with few exceptions. I guess not. Expect more layoffs next year. That was supposed to be it for this video, but I finished the script a few days ago, and since then the following stuff has happened at Twitter. Do like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this video so far while I go through this list. Twitter layoff email BCC drama. Twitter sent out an email to people who got laid off but forgot to use BCC in the email, meaning there's a chaotic reply all party going on right now. Lockheed Martin fake tweet. Lockheed Martin lost around $6 billion in market cap when an account impersonating them made the claim that the defense contractor would halt sales to the United States, Israel, and Saudi Arabia. Eli Lilly fake tweet. Eli Lilly lost around $10 billion in market cap when an account impersonating them made the claim that the pharmaceutical company would be making insulin available for free going forward. Blue checkmark discontinued. Because of all the chaos with people abusing the blue checkmarks, Twitter suspended the now paid service. Twitter asks some employees to come back. Because they just got rid of half the company, they're realizing that some of the people fired were actually the ones keeping the ship afloat. Twitter senior director calls fired employees lazy and unmotivated. A senior director at Twitter had his Slack conversation leaked where he called those fired weak, lazy, unmotivated, and may even be against an Elon Twitter. I think it's safe to say at this point that most people are against an Elon Twitter. Thank you for watching.